Good afternoon, everybody. Today's webinar is preparing to deliver the BSE Level 3, and we're going to look at specifically the heating and ventilation route. So as I say, welcome. Today we'll be looking at why the transformation, why the transformation has taken place, the Level 3 qualification content, the structure of the units, the summary of assessment, the employer confirmation guide, the learning resources available, what to do on next steps, and during the whole process we'll be looking at questions and answers. If you do have any questions as we go along, there is a question tab that you can type your question in, and my colleague will be looking to answer those as we go through. But we'll give ample time for direct questioning. Unfortunately, Mark Jones can't be with us today. He's at another meeting, but my colleague Andy Beresford is standing in. Andy is a EQA for EAL for plumbing and heating.
Afternoon, all.
So I'm afraid you're lumbered with me. My name's Graham Hire, and I also work for EAL as an EQA. My background is heating and ventilation and plumbing and heating. So without further ado, let's attack it, as they say. So why the transformation from those qualifications that we used to love and used to know so well to deliver? Well, in 2008, a sector review was commissioned titled Building the Future. The competency-based education, or CBE, provided a context for change. The outlined findings for the report were that there were inconsistencies in assessment, and some areas of learning were not effectively assessed at all. Learners still needed the skills to deal with a range of tasks and with problem solving. It wasn't meeting the skills need for Wales, and there were over 400 qualifications to deal with. There is a need to improve coherence with clear pathways that led through to workplace and higher education. And finally, there needed to be a portability within Wales and beyond. As you can see, today's focus is on the Level 3 BSE, and in particular the heating and ventilation. But it's worth taking a moment just to look at the qualification structure and how it has changed. A GCSE in the built environment starts everything off now, and then leads us through to an AS and an A level from September 2022. Then onwards to Level 2, and finally to the Level 3 construction, to Level 3 in construction or building services engineering. The learner journey starts, as we've already said, this September 2022. When the new qualifications commence, with the foundation, broad level 1 and the core apprenticeship all starting off this year. As you can see, there's an expectation year on year progression and new registration. So questions that have already been raised and some that you may already have. What does the qualification cover? Well, the Level 3 qualification in Building Services Engineering is developed that learners will develop their knowledge, skills and understanding in the building services engineering trade contained within the National Occupation Standards. Learners will complete 2, however, saying that, we think it's 3, having read the document through, of units covering their relevant sector and practice in the sector in Wales. So just clarification on that. There are 3 units that are specifically to do with the sector within Wales, rather than 2. Who's the qualification for? Well, it's aimed at learners aged 16 plus who are currently working in the building services engineering industry. It's for learners who have either passed the Level 2 foundation in construction and built environment qualification, or will be completing their core foundation qualification, learning and assessments whilst in their apprenticeship. Learners who have completed the Level 2 progression in building services engineering qualification. As we stated earlier, lots of those qualifications are just starting this year. So what's the mode? Well, it's designed to be completed on a part-time basis within the apprenticeship. And before any assessments can be taken place, learners must first demonstrate their performance and capability to the satisfaction of their employer. We'll be looking closer at that later on. Qualification leads us and provides the learner with the skills and knowledge required for them to be capable of working on their chosen trade area across the UK, which meets the criteria of Wales and beyond. Excuse me. So let's have a little look at the heating and ventilation qualification content. The man obviously in the picture is not a heat and ventilation engineer. Okay, so please note that at foundation, all trade levels are available, all trades are available, from the wet trades and the biblical trades through to some of the mechanical trades, plumbing, heating, ventilation, and electrotechnical systems. You'll notice there's a pre-foundation level 1, which City and Guilds and EAL run, which is in construction skills and plumbing and electrical. The progression into the building services engineering is predominantly and specifically for moving on to the level 3. So we've not discarded all of the other trades and qualifications, but we are concentrating on the plumbing, heating, electrical systems. So we've moved in now to the level 3 building services engineering, which is predominantly run by EAL. There are 4 qualifications: heating and ventilating craftsperson, heating and ventilating installation, plumbing and heating, and electrotechnical installation. We'll look at the qualifications of the 2 heating qualifications in a little bit more detail. So first and foremost, we're going to look at heating and ventilating installation route. To achieve this heating and ventilation installation qualification, learners must successfully undertake all of the units. They must achieve a pass grade or higher in the assessment methods and successfully complete the safety critical assessment. We'll look at that again later on. It has a total guided learning hours of 672. Please note, please note that the very first part are 7 common core units: 301 to 304 and 312 to 314. There are common units across all 4 of the delivery qualifications, whether that's the craftsperson, the installation, plumbing and heating, or electrical technical. So they are the common core units, followed on by 8 specific trade units for this particular qualification. All forms of assessment will be taking place, and we'll look at that in a while. An employer confirmation must have been completed prior to commencement of the professional discussion. Again, we'll look at that later. And learners must have completed a practical project assessment prior to the professional discussion assessment. So looking at the heating and ventilating craftsperson, please note there's an increase in guided learning hours from 672 to 1,044. Same criteria, same requirement for achievement a pass or higher. But as we look at the construction of the qualification, we know that along with these 7 common units, there are now 14 trade specific units and assessments. To give you some sort of idea and clarification on that, it's worth noting that this qualification in years gone by would have been known as the advanced craft, which would have followed on from the craft. So it gives us an idea in our minds of where we've come from and where we're going to. but note both of these are level 3 qualifications. Previously, the craft was a level 2 and the advanced craft would have been level 3. Again, all forms of assessment will take place and the employer confirmation must have been completed prior to professional discussion, just the same as the previous. Our assessment types for both qualifications remain the same. There are 2 on-screen assessments that are externally set and marked, which have a value of 20% of the overall qualification award. The practical project, which is internally set and marked but externally verified, has a 60% value. The professional discussion, which is externally set, marked and verified, holds a further 20%. The safety critical test, which we mentioned earlier on, doesn't hold any percentage weight at all. It doesn't actually affect the qualification, whether you will pass, merit or distinction, but it does need to be passed before qualification can be awarded. There are 2 tasks within it. One is a safe isolation of electrical and one is for safe use of equipment. Excuse me. Again, they don't have any percentage weight, but they must be passed for the qualification to be awarded. The craftsperson, you'll note that the credits have now gone up considerably to 118. Exactly the same criteria and the same weight to questioning and assessment, 20% for on-screen, 60% for practical, 20% for the professional discussion, and the same critical tests. We'll take a brief look now at the common core units. 301, 302, 304, 303, 312, 313 and 314. You can see there's quite a range, but they are all fairly, if not all totally generic to all 4 of the qualifications. So health and safety and environmental legislation, maintaining relationships, coordinated site work, planning evaluation, working in building services and understanding building services practices. We can see now why there are 7 core units that are the same across all 4 qualifications. So this is just a breakdown of what we've just spoken about. If you notice, the guided learning hours are considerably different from the heat and ventilating installation and the craftsperson. Well, that was easy. That was the first part. Have we got any questions as yet, or are we all up to speed so far?
Nothing in the question box at the moment, Graham.
Fantastic. That means either they've all logged out or I've driven them all to sleep. Okay, so let's have a little look. Let's have a little look at the unit structure. I'm sure we're all familiar with learning outcomes and assessment criteria. Both are detailed fully in the qualification handbook and the assessment packs that are available to download. We'll look at that later on. The range, however, contains information about the breadth required for specific assessment criteria. For example, the actual reasons for stacking and storing materials. The range is not an exhaustive list, and there may be other examples that could fit within the topic area. Again, all elements listed in the range must be covered as part of the delivery of the unit. Each unit will be set out in a common format, again available in the qualification handbook. Each unit will have its own number and its own title. It will describe the guided learning hours, and there will be a brief description about what the unit is. It will also contain any recommendations. For instance, this unit should be delivered prior to 3:02. Now, the learning outcomes known, for instance, know the relevant trade bodies and organisations within the building services engineering sector. I'm sure we've all delivered previously in maybe different guises. Where this changes slightly is delivery outcomes. If you look at the bottom of the slide, the depth of content. So the depth of content is giving us a far broader explanation of what's required to be met by the delivery outcomes. For instance, awareness of BSE being industry owned and controlled, or BSE being a professional engineering institution. Learners will have to have an awareness of Unite, the union, and their services and benefits. So it gives us, as I say, it gives us depth of content. So it enables us to deliver across the spectrum of the qualification. Good stuff. Okay, our summary of assessments now. As we previously mentioned, there are 3 assessment methods being used here, plus the safety critical test. First and foremost, there's 2 on-screen assessments, followed by a practical project and a professional discussion. The assessment pack that fully details the requirements of assessments is now available to be downloaded from Skills for Wales website, and there is a link on the presentation that you'll all be sent later. Details of coverage of each assessment can be found in the assessment specification within the assessment pack. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Our on-screen assessments. There are 2 tests, tests 1 and 2, consisting of a range of multiple choice and advanced question types. They are externally set and automatically marked, and results will be received by the centre on the same day, except for the initial release of the new versions. First runs of these tests will be moderated, which will incur a slight delay in the results being issued. Thereafter, it will be on the same day. The practical project are work-based tasks. Where this qualification differs previously than before is there is a greater influence and involvement by the employer. Collaboration with the employer and training provider is essential for this. It's internally marked, and provisional marks are awarded following internal assessment, subject to external verification. Grades are to be shared with EAL EQAs for verification and sampling prior to any certification being released. Final part would be our professional discussion, and conducted by an external assessor. It will be carried out in a one-off, one-time sitting. The external assessor will be occupationally competent and be looking for specific technical language and terms used. Units covered in the professional discussion are outlined within the qualification manual. The professional discussion can only take place once the learner has completed the practical project and the employer confirmation. So we can see that the employer again plays a major part in the delivery of this new qualification. The employer confirmation document is available on the qualification page for Skills for Wales. It provides full guidance to employers and training providers on how the occupational competency statements set by industry have been met. All mandatory sections of the employer confirmation must be completed. An employer confirmation must be completed before the point of booking the professional discussion. It must support the learner in applying for the relevant competency cards. So again, we can see the employer is playing a major part. Our overall qualification result will either be a pass, merit, or distinction. Provisional grades for the practical project will undergo internal and external quality assurance. Professional discussion will be externally assessed to confirm the grade. And just to state as well that EAL will be providing the external assessing for the professional discussion. Final grading will be issued through EAL. Excuse me. Where a learner fails to successfully achieve a pass grade or any of the assessments, they are permitted to resubmit and resit. Where a learner is required to do so, appropriate feedback and support must be provided to enable the learner to do so with an appropriate time frame, meaning we wouldn't expect a following day resit. Okay. So guidance on the resit and submissions can be found in the assessment package. So before we move on, we've covered some quite heavy ground there. Have we any questions, or is everybody happy?
Question bank is still blank, Graham.
Wow, I must be explaining it very well, Andy. Or they've gone to sleep, or they've left. No, I'm sure that's not the case. So let's just take a breath, and now we're going to look at the employer confirmation guide. Employers, as we've already said, will have an enhanced role in the delivery of this new apprenticeship qualification, both in construction and building services engineering sector. Purpose of the employer confirmation sign-off is to provide centres and trade bodies with the assurance that the candidate is occupationally proficient and has covered the full range of relevant standards. Collection of evidence allows the centre to check that the employer confirmation is valid and that there is an audit trail to support the decision. Available for centres and employers are instructions and requirements for completing the sign-off process with our employer certificate confirmation guide, available again from the qualification page on Skills for Wales website. Just a footnote to say that colleges and providers will need to be working even more closely with employers than previously. It's not an NVQ anymore. The employer has quite an impact and quite a role to play. So let's look at how it all works together to get us to our final point of professional discussion. So the employer will work with the learners throughout their apprenticeship, so no change there really. But apprentices will log the work as they're completed in line with the national standards. Again, that will form part of the paperwork documentation that is available. The employers will confirm when the learner has met the requirement standards for the trade. Now, this must be done by completing the employer confirmation documentation. Learners can then be entered for the professional discussion to complete the qualification assessment. Work-based learning providers will work with employers to provide and support them to ensure the quality of the apprentices' logs. And finally, either City and Guilds and EAL will offer training and support where needed. And we will ensure that work-based learning providers have suitable processes in place. So as you can see, once all four of those have come together, we're able then to move on to our professional discussion. And as mentioned earlier on, EAL will be providing us with the assessor for professional discussion. On the slide now, we've got a example of the employer's confirmation guide. Again, downloadable. What I would suggest is that you do that and familiarise yourself prior to meeting with an employer who's looking to sign up an apprentice on this qualification. Okay. We're now going to look at some of the resources that are available to us to help us and guide us through this new qual. As we already said, Skills for Wales website is full of downloadable PDFs and printable documents for delivery and for assessment. There will be a download link. There is a download link, sorry, in the PowerPoint presentation that you'll all be sent later on. My advice again would be to go to the website, click on as many documents as you possibly can, and spend the next few days having a read through. There are some forms to be filled in, and we would suggest as a due course for standardisation that you use the forms that have been made available. They include things like editable spreadsheets that you can adapt as you require, which complements the scheme of work. These are all printable, obviously, for both staff and classroom use, and there are blank planners available for providers. So my suggestion is we don't reinvent the wheel, we use what's been developed already for us. Hodder Education, as we know, are publishers of technical literature, and Hodder will be publishing a free mapping document which demonstrates how Hodder Education's existing publications can be used to deliver trade-specific elements. Hodder have also said that they would love to hear your thoughts about their plans. We will also have our content reviewed before publication and can share sample material in advance so that you can see how it might support your classroom teaching. You could also join the teacher team, or if you would like to review content for Hodder Education, please get in touch with them directly. Again, the email is on the PowerPoint here. Hodder textbooks support the BSE qualifications, and whilst we endorse them, EAL have not been involved in reviewing the content contained within the textbooks. However, we are fully confident that they will support the qualification. If you'd like to purchase or find out more about the textbooks, please contact Hodder directly. The qualification manual is fully comprehensive and lists anything and everything you possibly need to know about the qualification itself. The assessment pack that comes as partners with the qualification manual also details full and critical path of assessments right through to the professional discussion. BAL Building Services Engineering Level 3 Heating and Ventilation Installation Employer Confirmation Guide, as I say, is there to download as well. Same books, different title. Craftsperson has been added to this, and they are slightly longer books, as you can imagine, because there are slightly more units. So, what are the next steps if you are interested in delivering these qualifications? Available on the Skill for Wales website are the customer application forms. Once you've taken the form and sent it in, it will be reviewed and an external quality assurer will be allocated to your centre. He'll be a subject matter expert, and he'll come or she'll come and do a visit to your centre to go through the qualities of delivery, the requirements for delivery, sorry. The approval report will be completed by the EQA and then shared with the centre. The approval decision will then be made, and you will be told in writing whether you've been successful or not. The approval journey. Centres can expect a decision about the approval within 30 working days of receipt of the completed application. So please note that that is the completed application, not from the moment of applying as such. Separate approvals must be submitted for sub-centres or satellites. Approval cannot be transferred between centres. As we said earlier, centres do not need to invent new documentation for these qualifications. For example, the planners, they're all available and they can be adapted to suit. Centres may not know which assessment sites they will have following approval. This can be shared with EAL once it's known. To complement the delivery, we've produced a centre administration guide that covers both construction and building services qualifications in Wales. The guide provides an overview of the quality assurance processes and procedures for these qualifications, covers things like the centre and the qualification approval, the ongoing quality assurance monitoring, and centre administrations. So available on Become a Centre, again, Become a Centre page on the Skills for Wales website. Well, it says there quite clearly, is there any questions?
No question. Hang on. Yes, one just come in. I need to expand that. What is the progression for heating and vent MVQ level 2 qualified learners next year, and will they have to restart an EAL level 3 craftsperson resource? The answer for that one is there is an RPL document coming out. I believe it's going on the Skills for Wales website at the end of this week. That should then guide you, Graham, Gareth, to what will and won't be acceptable and how to go about it.
Does that help, Gareth? We can open mics now if you want. If you've got a discussion or if you want to ask a question that we can answer, possibly, then feel free to open your microphones. We'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. I would say at this point that your feedback is really important to us as well. So it can really help us make sure that we're communicating in the right way. It informs us on how to make improvements to the information we've provided. So please look at the email. Please look out for an email asking for your feedback to this webinar. If there are no more questions or any comment from anybody, I'd like to thank you very much for listening and for your questions, although they were brief. If you do think of anything later on, then please contact us via skillsforwales.customer@eal.org.uk, and we'll do our very, very best to answer the questions in full. As I say, please leave your feedback. It's really appreciated. And thank you for your time this afternoon.